Good evening. Can everybody hear me? Good. Great. Thank you. Welcome to the planning board meeting of October 10th. First item is a roll call. Member Barry present.
Member Ryan present.
Member Glenn present.
Member Mead present. I'd ask for the board to, I know they've had an opportunity to review the planning board meeting minutes from June 13th. Entertain a motion.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the first item on our agenda, let me just do one thing, two things actually. The first two items on our agenda, we have correspondence addressed to the chair regarding 365 Newport Avenue. Please accept this letter as a request to continue the public hearing on the above referenced project scheduled for October 10, 2018 to the next scheduled planning board hearing. Thank you for consideration and look forward to discussing the project further with you. Sincerely, Robert W. Hernandez. And our next, is there a motion to continue this to our next meeting, which is November 14th?
Second.
Second discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And the next item is a letter addressed to me for 66 McGrath Highway and 70 Spear Street. Please accept this letter as a request to continue the public hearing in the above referenced project scheduled for October 10, 2018 to the next scheduled planning board hearing. Sincerely, Robert W. Hernandez. Is there a motion to that effect?
And just to be clear,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I believe our next planning board meeting
It's
is
November 14th.
I thought it was in 2 weeks.
No, no,
Special.
that's solely.
Okay, so we don't have to make a
No.
clarification.
No.
Then, I need to move it to
Okay.
And second.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
I'd ask the board's indulgence if I could take an item out of order. All right, I understand that the applicant on the next item is not ready yet, so we will move to the third item on our agenda, which is public hearing, 53 Packett's Lane, planning board case 2018-10. In accordance with the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 11, the Quincy Planning Board will hold a continued public hearing on Wednesday, October 10th, at 7:03 in the lower level conference room, Quincy City Hall, 1305 Hancock Street, on the application of Packett's Lane Townhouse Group LLC, 34 Staten Road, Braintree, Mass. 02184, for site plan review under Quincy zoning ordinance Title 17, Section 9.5.1, site plan review, and special permit under Section 5.1.17, parking waiver. The applicant proposes the construction of a new 3-story, 5-unit townhouse-style residential condominium development with single-car garages and tandem driveway spaces, along with 5 visitor parking spaces, for a total of 15 parking spaces. Applicant also proposes landscaping, drainage, and other site modifications. The property contains 22,506 more or less square feet of land and is located at 53 Packett's Lane. The subject property is located within a Residence B zoning district and is shown on the assessors plan 1192, Lot 37. Just by way of update, I think the board was looking into, actually there was a recommendation from the department at the last meeting, and concern over the ability of fire apparatus to maneuver to the site. And I don't know who's going to, I asked it, the fire department has tested it, and we have a communication addressed to the department from Joseph C. Jackson. Based on the information, it appears that we can access the site even with our biggest ladder trucks. No other concerns on our end. Thank you, Deputy Fire Chief Joseph Jackson, Quincy Fire Department. Okay? Yes. Everything said? You want to say anything?
No, Mr. Chairman, I believe the public hearing was closed on this matter, so.
Correct.
I did reach out to the deputy chief as requested. He had reviewed the report before, had issued his comments, but he did forward those comments and indicated that he had no concerns about access to the site with the ladder truck. He had asked Mr. Gillen to actually modify the plans the report that he had provided to include a larger ladder truck. He did so, and there was no concerns raised by him. So I believe all of the comments and concerns of all of the departments have been addressed. I believe all the concerns of the fire department, the DPW, the peer review have been appropriately addressed. I know that the planning department issued a favorable recommendation at the last hearing. I think the only thing that we were waiting on was the fire department report.
Any comments from the board? We still have the, no, the recommendation. Okay, I'm going to ask Mr. Stevens if he would read the recommendation from the department.
After consideration of the site plan, accompanying documents and the comments received from the city staff, peer review consultant, and the department, the department recommends that the board approve the site plan review under Quincy Center zoning, Title 17 under Section 9.5.1 site plan review, and special permit under Sections 5.1.17 parking waiver, subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall obtain all necessary variances from the City of Quincy Zoning Board of Appeal. Number 2, the applicant shall conduct a pre-demolition hazardous materials survey, i.e. asbestos-containing materials, fluorescent lights, PCB-containing materials including ballast, mercury-containing thermostats and switches, etc., and provide a copy of the survey to the Quincy Health Department. If hazardous materials are found in the building, then the applicant or its licensed abatement contractor shall consult with the Quincy Health Department regarding abatement measures and monitoring of abatement work. Number 3, as the project site is in a residential neighborhood, the applicant shall consult with the Quincy Health Department on noise mitigation measures for the project-related noise-generating activities in order to comply with the local and state regulations. 4, trash and recycling shall be picked up on site by a private waste hauler hired by the homeowners association. Trash and recycling containers shall remain in homeowners' units and not be placed outside into the trash area as shown on the sheet C4 of the project plans no earlier than 24 hours prior to scheduled collection. This special condition shall be incorporated into the homeowners association bylaws, rules, and regulations, and into property deeds. Number 5, the applicant shall submit final plans for the detail of the proposed fall protection barrier on top of the retaining wall as depicted on sheet C2 layout and materials plan revised through August 27, 2018 to the Inspectional Service Department for review and approval. Applicant shall also correct the discrepancy in the number of concrete retention galleys from 24 to 30 in the note on the final plan set. Number 6, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall perform a test pit to confirm site soil conditions and submit the results to the city engineering office for review. If any modifications are necessary, then the changes shall be approved by the city engineer. And that is the
Those are
recommended
the special conditions.
condition.
Okay. Comment from the board, any members of the board?
But my comment. The two matters before us this evening, approval of the site plan and a grant of a special permit. Although I have the greatest respect for the planning department and the recommendation to approve both the site plan and the special permit, after weighing the applicant's presentation and arguments, the concerns of the residents from the neighborhood, and my knowledge of the parcel and the neighborhood itself, I'm simply unable to approve the site plan without imposing a number of reasonable conditions, albeit material conditions, mainly around reduction in size and scope. Nor am I willing to grant the special permit, as the parking waiver is intrinsically tied to the current proposal which I believe in its existing form has a number of negative impacts, not the least of which being its overall design is simply not suitable to this neighborhood. To step back for a moment, my familiarity with this street, its residents, and issues with regards to development goes back to the last project approved by this board on Packard Lane, directly across from the current site. I do not subscribe to the notion that the prior approval of that multi-unit building compels this board to approve this current project. In fact, I feel that this is a case of a project, the current one, that could have been palatable for this property in this neighborhood prior to that other project being built. But now the aggregate negative impacts of the two combined make the current project untenable. In other words, I feel when it comes to Packard Lane, this project as presented has come too late. Of course, I'm but one member of a 5-person board, so I defer to my colleagues for their own reactions and thoughts on my position before I enter any motion.
Comments from the other board members? Hearing none, I think we'll afford the applicant an opportunity to comment before we do anything further.
Mr. Barry, I have a lot of respect for you, and I appreciate the work that you do for this board and the time that you spend to review these projects. But I would argue, respectfully, that site plan review does not afford this board the opportunity to deny a site plan review. The SJC has actually ruled on that, and they've actually distinguished between site plan review and special permits. So in this particular case, this is what I would suggest that the board is looking at. The board is looking at this matter in light of an approval by the DPW department, which has analyzed and reviewed all the engineering-related matters, including access to and from this site. They're looking at this site after seeing that the fire department has also reviewed this to determine that there's adequate and safe egress to the site for the purposes of fire protection. They're looking at this application having seen that the independent peer review agency has independently reviewed all of the information that's been submitted by this applicant for this site and determined that it complies with and satisfies all of the requirements of site plan review. And furthermore, this board is looking at this matter understanding that the department itself has made a determination after reviewing all the evidence that's been submitted that this application completely satisfies all of the requirements of site plan review. So in that respect, I believe that this board is required by law to approve site plan review. Now, I agree with you that special permit has a different criteria and a different category, and there's no entitlement to a site plan, to a special permit. In this case, however, no special permit is now required of this project. This project requested at the time of the initial design a special permit for the parking waiver. It's no longer required of this particular application, so we're not seeking that special permit request any longer. We're all only seeking site plan review. Your other argument, respectfully, about that in the aggregate, because of a project that had been permitted years before, that this project somehow is no longer entitled to site plan review approval, completely falls on its face. And as an attorney, I know you know that this project has to be determined independent of any other project. And a project that may have been approved in the past can't all of a sudden cause this project to no longer be a viable project. Remember, as I indicated before, we're not seeking any density relief on this matter. This project actually satisfies the density requirements of the ordinance. The only variances that we're going to be seeking from the Zoning Board of Appeals, and again, that's not within the purview of this board, is variances that would allow us to construct this building to the far left of the site and further forward because of the hardships that are related to this particular property, related to the shape, the soil conditions and the topography of the site. So that's an argument that I need to raise and make with the zoning board of appeals, but I think it's important for this board to understand, we are not seeking any dimensional relief. What that means legally is that we are entitled to build 5 units on this land, because we satisfy the density requirements. We are entitled, this applicant is entitled to approval. So I would suggest, and understanding and respecting your concerns about the nature of the roadway and the development across the street, I would suggest to you that a denial of site plan review is not within the purview of this board. And I specifically referenced that because that was studied by the Supreme Judicial Court. And the Supreme Judicial Court indicated in sum, site plan review can only be used to shape a project. It cannot be used to deny a project. And I would suggest, Mr. Barry, that
And can I stop
shaping...
you for a second, Mr. Fleming? I think we're speaking past each other. If in my statement I ever used the term denial of site plan review, I don't believe I did. And I was very careful not to do that. And I appreciate you edifying the public and the board to our inability to deny site plan review. And I agree with your recitation of where the Mass Supreme Court stands on this matter. I do believe, and unless I'm wrong, that this board sits to impose reasonable conditions on a bespoke basis, looking at a particular parcel and its surrounding circumstances. And that is where I am coming from. I am looking at the totality of this neighborhood, and again, I apologize if I gave any semblance that I meant to suggest that we deny site plan. I said that I could not approve the site plan without asking for reasonable conditions, and as I said before, I believe, material conditions in reduction of size and scope, and I understand that you believe, and you have arguments about why it is a as of right, but I personally feel, after seeing all of the evidence, that this size and scope is not right for this neighborhood, and that's what I'm hanging my hat on. So I just want to make sure that we weren't talking past each other, because I never meant to say that I was about to make a motion to deny.
Okay, I would suggest, Mr. Barry, respectfully, that seeking to impose a condition as such, as you suggested, in the reduction of size where this project is by right and that it complies with density requirements is in fact a denial. And I believe that that's how the court would review it. And I don't want to go there. My hope is, and I did take back concerns to my client about the idea and the possibility of reducing this project in size, and it's just not feasible. And why it's not feasible is because all of the costs associated with this project, i.e. related to the site conditions, the drainage, the landscaping, those all remain in place, whether it's a 3, 4, or a 5-unit development. So by imposing a condition that requires the reduction in size, I would suggest that's effectively a denial. So that's why I indicated denial. I know you never used that word. But
Thank you for clarifying your position, I appreciate it.
so I would only ask the board to consider all of the work that's gone into this project through the review that has taken place by all the city departments, by the planning department, by the independent review, in determining whether or not this project complies with the requirements of site plan review, as they're defined very clearly in our ordinance. And they're defined even more clearly in the plan content checklist and the regulations that have been imposed by this body. And we've complied with all of those requirements, all of them. And that has been stated, not only by me, but by all of the departments that I mentioned. So I would respectfully request that you reconsider your position on that you think about the approvals or the recommendations that have been made by the other departments and the other bodies. Okay.
Mr. Fleming, I have a question, if Mr. Barry is listening.
I am.
Okay.
And thank you.
So do I understand you correctly that you're withdrawing your request for a parking waiver?
Yes,
And is that so reflected in your plans?
it is, and there's no special permit required from the plans, that's right. The reason for the request initially was setback relief. That has been clarified in the modifications of the plans that have been filed with the board. Yes.
And just for my information, pleading ignorance, those plans were submitted at the last meeting?
No, they were submitted prior, yes, they were submitted prior to the last meeting. I think it was a couple weeks before the last meeting.
Okay, so,
I didn't make any specific formal request to do so because there was no need to do so at the time. It really didn't impact the notice that had been provided or the hearings that had taken place.
okay, except that the application represents that there's a request for a parking waiver.
No, well, I understand that. That's good because that's exactly what it was required at the time that we made the initial
Okay,
application.
which is a special permit.
Right, as well as site plan review.
Yeah, correct, but my concern with 4 members here, that there's a special permit, which requires the supermajority.
A special permit was required, you're right, a vote of 4 was required for the special permit,
Correct.
but that's not required.
I'm just asking for a clarification.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right.
Okay, the department's made its recommendation. Any other comments from the board? Entertain a motion?
I'll make the motion, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
Discussion? The motion is on the site plan review. Okay, as the department is outlined. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed. 3 to 1 vote, so it passes.
Thank you very much.
You all set? Okay. The next item, which I'd ask to take out of order at the request of Councilor Crowe, is for a public hearing for 35 Main Street, planning board case 2018-15, in accordance with the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 11, the Quincy Planning Board will hold a continued public hearing on Wednesday, October 10th, 2018, on or about 7. I'm sorry. On the application, the review, 20 Home Court, Malden, Mass. 02148 for site plan review under Quincy zoning ordinance Title 17, Section 9.5.1, site plan review. The applicant proposes the demolition of an existing single-family home and the construction of 2 two-unit residential buildings. Applicant also proposes landscaping, drainage. Can we have? Applicant also proposes landscaping, drainage, and other site modifications. The property contains 13,931 plus or minus square feet and is located at 35 Main Street. The property is located within the Residence B zoning district and is shown on Assessors Plan 2042, Plot 4. Attorney Fleming.
I wish I knew as much as Fleming after that presentation. Sorry, that's quite all right. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Bill Phelan on behalf of Ed, who's here, along with Brian Donahue, the architect on this project. As you said, it's a residential B zone neighborhood, an old neighborhood that many residents have been living in for quite some time. This particular house is a single-family house, but it's a rather large lot. It's 13,900 and some odd square feet lot. Actually, large enough in the area to have 2 Res B lots subdivided, but for the fact that there were there's not enough frontage. There is some ledge on the lot as well. The applicant's proposing to construct 4 units in 2 separate buildings, tear down the existing single-family building, and construct 2 buildings. As you can see, I'm going to let Brian tell you a little bit about the plan, but essentially with 13,900 some odd square feet, the zoning relief that would be required would only be as to floor area ratio, slightly larger, 0.7 as opposed to 0.4, and 4 units as opposed to 3. It's just under the 4-unit limit. Actually, again, if it was subdivided, you could probably have 4 units in it. So with that, I'm going to introduce Brian Donahue to go over. Oh, I would also state that we reached out to Ward Council Brian Kroll. We had a neighborhood meeting, which I thought was pretty productive. Number of neighbors were present. Some had no problem with the project. Some concerns were raised as to drainage. Some concerns were raised as to parking, and also the fact that there were 3 bedrooms in each of the units, having 4 units. We went back to the drawing board, added a couple of parking spaces, so there's 3 parking spaces for each unit, requirement being 2. And we reduced each of the units by a bedroom as well, so they're all 2-bedroom units. And we thought that that would be good. In the meantime, other residents, as often is the case, caught wind of the project late, and I understand that there's some concerns with the neighbors. We're hoping that we can address some of those concerns, but nonetheless, we're here for a public hearing tonight, and I turn it over to Brian Donahue to explain the project a little bit.
Mr. Donahue.
Thanks, Bill. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Brian Donahue, principal of Donahue Architects here in Quincy. As Bill stated, we have 2-unit buildings, mirror image on site. The lot is approximately 134 feet by 100 feet on the frontage, Main Street being here. So what we're proposing to do is have a single drive-in from the center of the lot and two 2-unit buildings which actually mirror each other, which I'll go over in elevation to you as well. Each unit is approximately 2,000 square feet plus a 400 square foot garage. So in gross total, it's about 2,400 square feet per unit. The site sort of slopes from the east side down towards the west and then towards Main Street. So there's a significant amount of ledge here in this corner of the site, so we'll have to be excavating that to get this drive to an elevation which is approximately 3 feet above the street. So this particular 2-unit building will be cut into the site a little bit, and this one will be sitting pretty prominently and flat on the site. So there's 26 feet or so between the buildings, enough to park into the 2-car garages that are under each unit. So in the plan, we have a 2-car garage in each unit, and then 4 spaces towards the rear, which is part of I guess parking, more or less, parking component of this building. So this will have to be retained to a certain extent, but we're not talking about a large retaining wall. It's actually fairly small, maybe 3 feet cut into the site. I apologize, we don't really have a professional landscape plan, but the intent here is to keep anything that's significant, large caliber on site that doesn't interfere with the development itself, and hopefully present some screening along the back, along the side, the east side and the rear southern elevation. So the plans are, as Bill mentioned, 2 units per building. So you have a garage and a small family room on the ground level, a stair up to an open plan for living space, dining, kitchen, living, half bath, and a stair up to the bedroom level on the top. The actual height of the building is only 33 feet from this grade to the ridge to the highest point. So where it's cut into the side a little bit, it would be significantly less than that, and down here it would be just a little bit more because the grade is going down in that direction. As Bill mentioned, when we presented this to the neighbors originally a few months ago, we had 4 3-bedroom units. And just to correct him, we still have 3-bedroom units on the front facing the street, but the units in the back of the site have been reduced to 2 units, 2 bedrooms and a study. I think our intent here was to keep the scale from the street elevation as residential and contextual as possible with the neighborhood. The neighborhood makeup, as you may know, is a mixture of single-family homes, two-family homes, and we feel that because of the actual size of this lot, which is a lot larger than most of the lots in the street, that we would place two buildings with a 2.5-story residential facade facing the street. So in that respect, we're trying to do our best to kind of make it fit in as much as possible, seeing as it's a little bit larger than some of the other homes on the street, but that was our intent here. So in these elevations, you can see that we've got the 2-car garage for each unit and the 2.5 stories, very traditional architecture with composite siding and trim, architectural shingles and double hung windows, everything that's contextual and the local vernacular architecture on the street. So without going any further, I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have specifically about the building. This elevation shows the higher points, so actually on this building here, the grade is fairly high, so it's in actuality almost really a story and a half on that side facing that abutting. We do have civil drawings here, which were prepared by a licensed engineer dealing with site drainage and so forth. So I feel like I can maybe share those with you without speaking as an expert on drainage, but the calculations in terms of stormwater management and so forth have been done by a registered professional engineer, and those drawings are part of your package that you have, showing a couple of dry well locations and underground Peltec systems to retain all the stormwater on site for this project up to 100 years storm. And in general, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have about this project.
Any questions on the board?
Question on the footage there on the front to back, how long is like, seems like 2 long buildings, and what's the length that it goes to?
75 feet.
35?
75.
Oh, 75, okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Member Glitz?
how close are your abutters? Just curious.
Well, the locus plan shows that in general, it's a fairly dense neighborhood, and most of the lot sizes are a half or a third of this lot size, so the homes are sitting on smaller lots. They're closer together. That is really the general character of that neighborhood.
So in terms of the height of the buildings, are they going to be something
They're
that's...
within the zoning requirements in
Okay.
terms of height, and the typical single-family house or two-family is at least.
If you're looking at the house to the right is rather close, the house to the left, if you're staring at the house from the street, that's another rather large lot with a lot of ledge. The house is a little bit further away, but there's a pool that's a little bit closer to the lot that we're proposing.
But it's within the zoning.
It is, and I did want to also add that all the setbacks meet the required zoning. Front yard, side, rear, the number of stories, the height, the open space per dwelling unit, number of parking spaces actually exceeds the number required by statute, and front setback paving is
So
also-
when you reduced the 3-bedroom to a 2-bedroom, was that to like reduce the massing?
It
or-
really was just to reduce the need for parking. It
Okay.
didn't reduce the mass at all, it just reduced the number of bedrooms within the structure.
Okay.
And thank you for correcting me on that. I think the only probably was wondering what I was saying when I said all 4 were 2 bedrooms.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Member Bear?
Just a couple. We always appreciate when an effort is made to blend the front-facing facade in with the neighborhood, and it sounds like you guys did that. Could you help me to visualize what the, in that front-facing facade, what the lowest level, what the building material is at the base level? That you, yeah,
Yeah, this down here would be sort of a panel system, board and batten, kind of a sort of New England barn kind of look with it, with sheet goods and batten trim materials. So it's really trying to, you know, actually the shape of the roof is kind of indicative of the Adams birthplace is sort of like the sort of salt box. But in terms of this lower level, it would be a panel system with battens. So it kind of break up the massing a little bit. It would feel like if it was all one material, that it may hurt the general look of it. So that's why we created that element at the lower level.
That's helpful, thank you. And then one question around trash pickup. Will the residents be putting all their trash out on the sidewalk, or will it be a private pickup?
Well, I don't know if we've really vetted that out yet. I think that there's certainly room for each unit owner, and by the way, these will be unit owners, these won't be rental apartments, we should be making that clear as well. So there's certainly significant area in that lower level to have a trash room or a place to put barrels and bring them out from trash day. I think that would be the probably, as opposed to, unless I'm wrong, with having to pick up someone coming into the site and picking up trash. I think that would be helpful.
Just a couple of questions. I think, Attorney Phelan, you represented that you need zoning relief for FAR and for density.
For density, yes.
Have you applied, that application been made?
No,
to the ZBA?
we have not applied, yes.
And the second question that was referenced, I don't know whether it was you, Bill, or Brian, blasting? You gonna have to do any blasting?
Well, you know, at the neighborhood meeting, it seemed, and I don't want to speak, everybody has different opinions, and I don't want to speak for anybody in particular, but it seemed like the consensus was that they didn't want blasting, and the applicant is happy to do either way.
I think that the thought process is blasting would get any kind of ledge removal done faster. Obviously, it's going to be, for a short period of time, it would be disruptive. Chipping away at ledge is a longer process, and that, you know, the downside to that is that it's protracted instead of going in once or twice and taking care of the ledge that's there.
Okay. Hearing no other questions from the board, it is a public hearing. I'd ask anybody who wishes to speak to come forward, identify yourself. Well, everybody seems to be shy. I will read two letters that the department has received. The first one is addressed to the director. My name is Caroline Marks, and I'm a resident of South Walnut Street. I'd like to oppose the proposed application of Young Yu for the project at 35 Main Street. I'm a lifelong resident of Quincy, having grown up in Ward 2 and still residing here. I embrace the progress and direction Quincy is headed. However, I am not in favor of demolishing any more single properties to put up multiple units. This is ruining our neighborhoods. For example, a home in Summer Street was recently torn down and 8 townhouses were built. Besides the issue of traffic and parking that is plaguing the city at this time, our neighborhoods have enough older multi-families, i.e. two families, that are part of the fabric of how Quincy used to be. Quincy prides itself on its wonderful neighborhoods. Enough of this excessive building. Thank you for reading this letter, and I strongly hope that you will consider my request. Caroline Marks. Second bit of correspondence is an email that was received at the department, addressed to the director and to the board. Please know that as abutters, we are opposed to the demolition of the existing single family, and we strongly oppose the construction of proposed 2-unit residential structures at 35 Main Street. We respectfully request that you deny the application for this project. Thank you, Maureen and Francesco Brillo, 115 Main Street. Okay, now, anybody else, someone that wishes to speak, come forward, identify yourself.
My name is Steven Salvatore. I live at 44 Main Street, it's across from 35, and I'm opposed to the demolition of it. I've been there for 30 years. I think it is ruining, the construction in Quincy is ruining the fabric of the neighborhood. I don't think it's a good fit for the city. It was supposedly supposed to be, the maximum, I was told, that was allowed was 3 units. They want 4. They want 3, they can fight for 3. I'm not, you know, I'll still fight against it, but That's what I'm told is allowed. And the whole parking situation, the driving situation, traffic, the streets, just the city in general is not, it doesn't fit. This doesn't fit the neighborhood that I've lived in for this amount of time. Doesn't work, and I don't think it's a good fit. I just don't think it's a good fit. And there's too much work that needs to be done to fit these units into the property. There's blocks, there's rocks that need to be blasted. My house sits on a granite block. I understand what it means to basically cut into a block to do this. And it doesn't, it's gonna ruin everything. It's gonna take too much time. I used to be an electrician, I worked in construction, and it's, you know, they have a timetable that's just not gonna work. It's gonna take longer than they say it will. It's just not gonna happen. I think we were told at the neighborhood meeting that our property value would go up, which makes 0 sense to me for everybody who's here supporting the denial of this motion, because nobody wants to move. We all want to stay in this neighborhood. We like the way the neighborhood is. Why would I want my property value to kind of go up? Doesn't make any sense to me. Nobody wants to move. So I'm against it. I think it doesn't fit the neighborhood I grew up in. The city was always, it was a city that was a small town. Everybody knew everybody. We all grew up together. And now it's turned into something completely different. And we don't have that now, and I'm sick of losing that. I mean, that's the progress of change, maybe, but I don't think it's good. We're not Harvard, we're not Alston. This is a city 30 minutes out from Boston. We're not close to that. So that's my feelings on it.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Hi, yes. My name's Larry Ganji. I live at 47 Main Street, directly beside this building they want to put up. I've lived in Quincy, worked in Quincy my whole life, and I think there's just too many these structures that are going up in these nice residential areas. Now, that's a one-family house, and the house is in good shape, and they're going to knock that down and put up these two bigger buildings, which I am totally against. I think they have enough in the city, they should stop doing that. And living next door, I'm the one gentleman that has the pool. And I love my pool. It's a beautiful area. It's all cement. I have a big cement patio all around the pool. I have my family and friends and relatives. They all come over in the summertime, and I enjoy it very much. And what I enjoy most a lot too is my privacy. My area is, my pool is in such an area that there isn't a house around me that can see what goes on in my pool area. And I like that. I like my privacy. I like to be able to come home from work, sit up by my pool, have a cold beer, and not have people looking out of their windows and checking me all out. I don't enjoy that at all. I like privacy. So, I've owned that house for like 38 years. I've had my pool there for at least 30, and we absolutely love it. It's a great spot. I also own a business in Quincy, and I own the land that the business is on, and I pay a lot of taxes, and the least thing I want to do is come home, sit in my backyard, have a beer, and not have people gawking out of their windows, checking me out, see what's going on in my pool. I want privacy. I've had that for over 30 years, and I like to keep it that way. You know what I'm saying? So that is another thing. And talking about the ledge is everywhere. My whole house is on ledge. My pool, which is right here, and their land starts over here. So my pool's right against my fence, up against their property. I'm right there. And if they start blasting or drilling, they're out there with a hammer and chisel, something's going to happen to my pool. And I got a huge patio, all cement, all around there. And I'm very afraid something's going to happen to that. So that's what I'm very concerned about. I think that's all I have to say. I thank you all very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
62 Grenville Road. I just want to say there's a problem with our zoning. I mean, unfortunately, this is close to being allowed. So we need to change our zoning, or projects like this are going to continue. I actually think this project right here isn't that dense at all, out of all the projects that I've seen. They're, you know, as much as everyone is complaining about 4 units on 13,000 square feet, what they're allowing nowadays in Quincy, this is not dense at all. There could be 12 units, there could be a square building there where there's 12 people looking at you, or this could be like a Warren Ave project where there's 46 units. What we really need to do is change the zoning code so this doesn't keep happening. But until we do, your hands are tied, and you really have to approve projects like this, or just like the one that Mr. Fleming just left from. So, I mean, I feel that if the people who are behind me, who are upset about this project, they have to call their city councilors, they have to call the mayor, and they have to say, we want zoning to be made more restrictive so the developing can stop, or we need a moratorium where there's no more buildings. In 2011, we made zoning less restrictive. So we are basically welcoming these sorts of projects. So I kind of sometimes feel bad for some of the attorneys that get up here, because they're just doing their jobs, and their job is just to, you know, advocate for their clients, and their clients are just playing within the rules that Mayor Koch and the 9 city councilors have made for the people that live in this city. So I kind of feel bad sometimes for the planning board and the zoning board, because it puts you guys in a very bad position. Let's change the zoning code, and this will stop. But until this stops, we're going to see project after project after project coming up here. And, you know, basically, from all the projects that I've seen, I'm going to have to say this really isn't that bad of a project. So, you know, if we're going to be approving things or not approving things according to the current zoning code, I have to say that I'm kind of in favor of this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Westphal. Anyone else wishing to
Yes,
speak?
I would like to speak. Hello, everyone. I am a resident of Quincy. I don't live on Main Street, but I am a student who's studying urban planning and development. And as I sit here and I observe everything that is going on, I do feel for the people that just live on Main Street and are concerned with some of the things that are being developed. But again, looking at the plans, it does seem like it's something that would be somewhat beneficial. I'm looking at the economic development, the economic growth of Quincy. We are growing, we are expanding, and I think it would be great to have it placed in. So I just wanted to give my input. My name is Sherelle, S-H-A-R-E-L-L, last name Jacobs, J-A-C-O-B-S, and I'm a graduate student at the University of Massachusetts, Boston.
And your
Thank you
address
very
is
much.
Quincy?
Yes.
Who you your address to, please?
Yes. 175 I Center Street, Quincy, Mass. 02169, and that's the Lincoln Heights development.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Hi, John Franciscini, 24 Main Street. I've been on Main Street for 63 years. Played on all the ledge. It runs up and down. My biggest concern, I'm like any neighborhood, and we all believe in the same. We really don't want to see change. We would rather see it stay residential. The thing that was a little bit bothersome to me is that when I wasn't at the original meeting, I was at the second meeting that was held, is that it's great to see the buildings the way they're put here, but it really doesn't give us an indication of how that property really is going to look. I felt bad for the people that abutted Larry with his pool and the neighbors on the other side, because basically, even if that is 25, 30 feet away, they're going to come out of their door, and as they leave their door, there's going to be a 30-foot structure that's going to be right next to the house. So as I said again, I didn't see anything when I asked for things to be looked at and how you can do it. I was wondering if that property was pushed back onto the property. So now when they look out their windows, they're looking at backyards of people, and people aren't on top of each other. I just think it's very difficult to sit and look at something and say you're in favor of it when you really don't know what that's going to look like. Because I've seen no plot plan and so forth. And I think that's, if we're going to do this, and I understand it's, you know, zoned that way and it's legal and it's a beautiful thing to look at, But I think we have to look at the entire picture of it. What is it gonna do for the neighborhood? How is it gonna look? I just think that property, if in fact it goes and you can't stop it, if it's sat off the street a number of feet, it wouldn't be so devastating to the eye, and it would be a lot fairer to Mr. Kanji and to the other neighbors. So again, not really in favor of the project, but if it is to go through, I just think we need a better picture of what this is gonna look like. And lastly, parking is brutal on Main Street. We have two giant buildings down the end of the street. When it gets to be the winter time, it just creeps up the street and so forth, and gets real difficult. So, again, against it, but if we're gonna continue and you're gonna vote for it to go through, I think we need to see a much better picture of what we're gonna get in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Francis. Anyone else wishing to speak?
My name is Elizabeth Stenandis, and I live at 58 South Walnut Street. And my property abuts 21 and 23 Main Street. Before I start, I'd like to say what this gentleman had to say. I totally agree about looking at the zoning rules and addressing them and correcting them. I don't necessarily agree with his view of in support of this because I don't feel that this fits in the neighborhood. I do have on my phone pictures of what 35 Main Street looks like. If anyone is interested in looking at it, I'd be happy to share that with you. There's some things that were discussed earlier with Councilor Phelan that were a surprise to me based on the one and only meeting that we had with him and Mr. Yu in July. And some of the changes that were made that the neighborhood wasn't made aware of. And I think that that's unfortunate because there's clearly a communication problem. Why wasn't these changes, why wasn't there another neighborhood meeting presented to us and saying, look, based on what was discussed on the July meeting, these are some changes that we've made. But that wasn't done. They just went ahead and decided to make these accommodations and still push forward to bring this to you as opposed to working with us first and getting all our concerns ironed out. But that wasn't done. The changes in bedrooms, that was a new thing to me. 2 extra spaces. We were told that there were going to be 2 extra spaces in back, and now we find out that there's 4. Again, the change in the bedrooms, that the front is going to be now 3 bedrooms and the 2 units in back are going to be 2 bedrooms. That was a surprise this evening to us as well. And as far as the intent of trying to make the units look like, to make them fit into the neighborhood, it does not. It does not. There are side-by-side duplexes and single-family homes on that street. And in my opinion, that's going to just jump out like a sore thumb in that neighborhood. It doesn't fit in the character that that single-family home presents. It has trees on the lot. It's a lovely home. It was well maintained. I have lived in the house that I am in my whole life. I live in the house I grew up in. And the people in the general neighborhood, Main Street, South Walnut Street, South Street, these are people that have been there either their whole life or for years. We know the area, we know what happens to the landscaping. Things that have not been brought to your attention so far that was discussed at the July meeting. We have a concern citywide about rodents, and that was brought up at the meeting, and we, asked, okay, what was what were the plans to address, if this house was gonna be torn down, to address that issue. And we were told that there is a procedure in place that is always addressed. And, but no one could tell us what the details were or how that was going to be accomplished. And my feeling is clearly, whatever that procedure is not adequate. Because with all the construction that's happening in the city of Quincy, we are getting rodents and rats in neighborhoods that have never had them before. So clearly, the steps that are being taken for construction in other parts of the city is not doing the job. Another item that has not been brought up yet is that the neighbors were concerned about flooding. And in this area between the back ends of the properties of Main Street and South Walnut, there is an underground spring. And when we get rainy season, a lot of snow, rainy springs, that floods. And I have seen it as bad as the entire backyard of 21 and 23 totally underwater. To the point that I remember when I was a child, the little boy that was living in the house there was in a rowboat. He got to row around his backyard because there was so much water back there. And that was back when we were having these mega storms that we're getting now. When that issue was brought up at the July neighborhood meeting, we were told, we're going to put up a retaining wall, we're going to put in some dry wells. What if that doesn't work? Because it's not runoff water that's the issue. It's the groundwater that, because from what I understand, this brook eventually feeds into the town river. 21 and 23 Main Street is not the only properties that get flooded. All the houses on either side do, as well as mine, but not to the extent that those properties on Main Street do. And the retaining wall and the dry wells would be effective, I would think, for groundwater, but not from the issue that we have now. So if what they want to do to demolish this house and all the construction, let's say that all gets done, and we get a storm, and it adversely affects or makes the situation worse that we have experienced with the water, what's our recourse as residents and neighbors in that area? We don't have any, because Mr. Yu has made his profit and moved on, and we have to deal with the consequences. So that was one area that has not been talked about. And the same thing goes with the blasting. It was said that Mr. Yu was willing to scrape and not blast, but what if he decides in the middle of it, look, this isn't accomplishing the task, this isn't meeting the needs that I have, we're going to start blasting. And now we start getting property damage. But we don't maybe it's something that we haven't discovered until after the project is completed. Again, what is our recourse? We're stuck. There is also another recently purchased property on Main Street. It's 72. And as a kid, I remember that as being a farm. It's a single-family home, and it was a farm for produce, and it had chickens and everything. That has, during the summer, has been sold to a different developer. So eventually, they will be coming before you for a development. It's not far from where 35 Main Street is. This is the new one is 72 Main Street. So this gets approved. And then up the street a little ways, we have this monstrosity, which is the only, I'm sure, try to jam as much as they can get in on that property. So now we're going to have two things. So I'm asking you to keep that in your mind for the potential additional construction and issues that are going to happen on Main Street as well. Plus the fact that there's a school the next street over, Point Webster Middle School. You bring in all this additional traffic and congestion, and what's that going to do for the safety of the kids in the neighborhood that still walk to school? So I'm asking you to please, even though that the 72 Main Street has not been brought before you, to please keep that in the back of your mind when you're making your decision here. The infrastructure, it was never discussed about all this additional building. That the water and the sewer system is going to be able to take all this additional usage. So none of that was discussed at our July meeting. Along with the flooding issue, there are some issues as far as the trees go. It is a tree-studded lot, and a lot of the trees create the barrier for the pool. Abutting 35 Main Street on South Walnut Street is 74 to 80. There are two, what used to be duplexes, are now condos. And they're side by side. And an individual bought both properties and renovated one of them and then sold them as condos. But they combined the two backyards and created a large parking lot. They leveled all the trees there. I would say 90 to 95% of the trees that were on that lot are gone. That property, 74 to 80, is northeast of my property. And this happened a number of years ago. And over these recent years, just very strange things have been happening. I have a tree-studded lot that creates the privacy between my backyard and 21 and 23 Main Street, where we abut. Those trees down in there, in the wintertime or in the spring when you go out and start cleaning up the yard, I'm finding my trees, some of them are snapping right in half. They're not coming up from the roots, they're snapping in half. And the only conclusion I can draw is that because those trees are now gone from the northeast, which is where we get our worst storm winds from, that additional buffer is gone. So it's snapping trees at 64 South Walnut Street and it's snapping trees at 58. If what is being proposed to you tonight happens, those remaining trees that are on 35, which again partially abuts 74 to 80, they're going to have to go too because they're mostly where the ledge is. That's going to take what few trees that are left coming in from my direction. What's going to happen to my property? And the property next door to me. The two units side by side, isn't that going to kind of cause a wind tunnel also? As the wind comes down, anytime you're in a big city and you have buildings close together, how much stronger the wind is because of the buildings and whatever. I'm concerned, along with the demolition of the trees, is that that's going to create additional wind coming in and going in back. So again, these were issues that were not brought up. Again, I have to mention how concerned I am of hearing about some of the changes that were proposed And as a neighbor, and also someone that's going to be affected by this development, just didn't know about it until tonight. I still am really upset that they didn't come to us and want to work with us. It's clearly that they just want to bulldoze through the project and get it done. Get the profit and move on. Again, the current design does not fit with the character and the charm of the neighborhood, and it will negatively impact our quality of life and our peaceful enjoyment of our property. "35 Main Street is just one development, one piece of a puzzle. Each piece, each development in the city added together makes a big picture, and it's not a pretty one." Again, this speaks to the need to change the zoning laws. "The current picture is one of overdevelopment, traffic, rodents, environmental concerns, and the devastation of our neighborhoods." I don't know what the city's thinking. It's one thing to develop the downtown area, but what's the purpose of overdeveloping the neighborhoods? Each department of the city needs to be accountable as to what's happening in our neighborhoods citywide. Single-family homes has become a dirty phrase. With so many apartment complexes going up in the city, it's created a transient city. We heard a gentleman speak about how we are a city, but we had a neighborhood feel, and that's holding on by a thread. And as we continue to shove apartment buildings in our city, these people don't have a vested interest in the city. They're here temporarily, and then they're going to move someplace where they're going to buy themselves a nice single home and have a quiet, regular family. They're not going to stay in Quincy. Whenever residents try to fight back at a development, we get a response of, "Oh, change is hard," and the residents just don't like change. Not the change. It's that the change is not problematic, but it's the disregard of the charm and the history of this city that the developers have shown and the city has allowed to happen. Quincy has always been proud of and promoted its history. And now what's happening is creating a large transient city that people are not going to have a vested interest in. 35 Main Street is again only one piece of the city's overdevelopment problems. Help us less dense residential B developments, not more. Protect the neighborhoods, protect the children, and protect our charm and history. In the newspaper recently about the bridge in Squanto, the mayor was quoted in it as saying that he was concerned about the impact of the neighborhood in Squanto because of the bridge, because of its narrow roads and its vehicular increase. That can be said for the development that's continuing to happen throughout the whole city. There was an article in today's Quincy Sun from an interview from October 5th with the mayor. And he said that his biggest concern about Squanto was the traffic in the neighborhood. That's all. As a resident in an area that's going to be overdeveloped if you allow it to. That's one of our concerns too. Plus the parking. Doesn't the rest of the city deserve the same consideration that the mayor has given Squanto? And We need the support of its officials and its entities that represent the city. So I'm asking you to please require Mr. Yu to come back to talk and work with us and to address our additional concerns that have been mentioned and find an acceptable solution for everyone. That common sense prevail. Ideally, I would love to see that home stay. It's a lovely home. I'm asking you, I'm begging you, do not approve this application in its present form. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
Yes, I do.
Come on up, identify yourself.
I won't be as long. My name is Marion Evans Fish. I was born in Quincy and I'll probably die in Quincy. I live at 64 South Walnut Street. I've lived there for 20-odd years. I just wanted to give you guys an idea of what happened. I'm next door to Betty. And when they cut down the property, two houses over, then 3 houses over, and then the other one, they got rid of all the trees, they narrowed the land down, and ours is hilly with granite, right? What happened was, my house, the frame went. So my frame is gone. I have a rock garden and a big rock fence. That rocks fell out for no other reason when the guy came to see it, except because the land was straightened out, not hills like it was slanting down. And I can't see what blasting would not have an effect on other frames. This was just going from hilly dirt down to straight dirt. And the trees, like Betty said, we're the only 2 with trees that are left that pick up the wind and keep the houses from not getting all over the place. And they're just snapping right up, they're just dying on us. Some of them have been there longer than I've been here. I don't understand it. I can understand they want to put a few there. But if my frame went, and it was checked, because of what they did, 2 houses over, they want to blast. And all of us in that area, I mean, my whole yard is rock or granite. I can't even add on to it because of that. I was going to put an addition on, and I can't because of the granite and rock. So I don't see how they're going to make it any better blasting it, that it won't affect all the frames. And my frame went from 3 houses over and was affected. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Anyone else wishing to speak? I'm sorry. Third and last time, anyone else wishing to speak? Council.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the board. Rebecca Bragg, Crawl 92, Biden Road. This process has been a lot of neighborhood participation. I just think it surprises me tonight that some of the members are shy, because when we had our last meeting they weren't as shy, but I think it's important that the board see a visual representation. Could everyone just from the area at least raise your hand so they know? So obviously this is an issue. This application is an issue and top of mind of all residents that live in a particular area. And it would echo some of the sentiment. I agree that this conversation is much more systemic than what we're dealing with here today. Director Fatsis and I have had several conversations about how we need to have basically a zoning code that reflects the growth and the realities that have taken place in the city. So that's certainly a point well taken, the conversation that is happening. With respect to what we heard here this evening, and being mindful of running the risk of recycling everything you've already heard, I think what you heard, at least what I heard, is a story of folks who have been here for a very long time, who have generational roots, who have been consistent taxpayers, who have been model citizens, and now are being approached with an application, and this is any neighborhood, that will alter the character of the neighborhood. And as I kind of walk through every application, affording the neighbors to participate in dialogue, I always say to myself, what is the benefit of a development in a particular neighborhood? And some cases, development is really good, right? But as I kind of walk through this particular sequence, I look at, and it was already mentioned here today, and I'm sure many folks have driven by the property, a fairly pristine single-family home that now has the potential to move to 4 units. And I say, how does that benefit the neighborhood? And quite frankly, in my mind, that's a real head scratcher because I don't see it. We're dealing with an already pretty well-kept property. So a lot of the point made and point taken by a lot of the sentiment through the residents, I do agree. And Mr. Chairman, I guess I would ask this as a question. You're not planning on taking action on this evening?
No, we're not.
So there'll be no action on this evening. But yeah, I do agree with that this is a much larger conversation than what we're dealing with here. But these residents have, they have a legitimate concern. This will alter the shape of the neighborhood. And as a planning board, as a planning department, as a ward counselor, let me put the onus on myself there. My job is to strategically work with neighbors and neighborhoods, and obviously applicants for applications to make sure that we are giving you the full scope and scale of things that are in the pipeline. Because one resident hit it absolutely correct. Every decision that we make becomes cumulative. And before we know it, we've made multiple decisions that have altered the neighborhood, and sometimes those come with unintended consequences. So I'm here representing, the people that I represent. We are not overly excited about this application in its current state. I do think that there's probably more work to be done, both at the city level as well as with the particular application. But I'm glad everybody came out because, as I shared with you, that's a big part of the process. And I know that each one of you, for the most part, personally, take a high level of credence with community input. So. I appreciate your indulgence to participate in the process this evening. I would assume that this will remain open, and the applicant will reconnect with me or through the neighborhood, or et cetera. But those are my comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody who has not spoken, we have sheets over on the, I guess I call it the table over to my left, okay, to be recorded. If you haven't spoken, feel free to check in, if you will, okay. What's the next step? The department, and I think the question was raised, we ship out these plans to 12 or 13 different departments within the city, building, public works, water, sewer, for comment, which we have done. We started. We do not have the input back. So I'm misrepresenting something, Mr. Stevens, feel free. So I would entertain a motion to continue this public hearing until our November 14th planning board meeting.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor? Aye. So this item will be discussed at our next planning board meeting, which is the 14th of November. By that time, we should have all the input, comments from various departments and our peer review comments. So we will have additional information which will enter into the mix in terms of the decisions. And again, I would encourage anybody that has not spoken to sign in. Yes, I'm sorry. Member Glenn.
John.
Oh.
Just a quick comment, and I've said it before, and I'm not just picking on this project, but it seems like every other project that comes before us, I have the same feeling about the visual, the renderings need to be more detailed. And I think if we could get something a little bit more sophisticated than just the Google Maps of the locus, and then some sketches that include the abutters and different sort of renderings that include elevation and things like that. That would be very helpful to us.
We'll be happy. Good. Thank you, Colonel.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? Okay. So as I said, we'll be discussing that item at our meeting on November 14th. Thank you all.
Thank you.
The next item is a continued.
I thought you were very excellent. I don't know who you are, but I guess you're appointed. Same with you, Mr. Meade. The others didn't say much of anything, and you finally did. And the woman keeps speaking up.
I've been speaking up my whole life.
The next item
Hear me roar. Yeah.
is a continued public hearing, 42 Mill Street. Oh yeah, why don't we take a brief recess while people put in an opportunity to sign in.
Yes.
This is when you take.
Yeah.
Yeah, what? Hopefully, after this, it'll just be, yeah, cool. I don't know, some people like this hot things, I don't like it. It's not this time.
City Council. Yeah. Never mind, I'm not trying to get involved. I've been involved in 3 different zoning council committee meetings, including the one that passed the original ordinance in 1970, which was a 2-year study with Jimmy McIntyre. And, you know, every year I take the annual speed, zoning category, every department say
I know the software is.
Have some city council that champion this. They won't.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm just, trying to get some landscaping business.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
All right, so there he was coming down, he had the whole net to shoot at, and the designee hit me right in the groin, it was horrible, I'll never forget that.
You probably the softest shot you probably could have ever had.
What part you played hockey?
You had nothing to do? You had nothing to do? I had nothing to do, you know. Kim wanted me out of the house for the night.
Tell her I said hello.
I will.
Yeah, but she said go see Maureen, she didn't come here.
I think it's exactly.
Yeah, I don't recognize that street.
Yeah, I know where it was. Well,
Where is it?
The old friendlies and that's.
Oh, sure, yeah. 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 Oh, I know
no real set guidelines on the square footage of living. What they're proposing is like pretty,
Yeah,
yeah. I don't know. That's what I was saying.
Yeah. Right.
Whatever. If
Right.
I don't even know. So I came down.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from. Jump into the, yeah. Busy?
Yeah, that's where I was just when I was over.
Oh, yeah, I've been. That's gotta be close to getting done, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
What's that over there?
The building inspector, Jackie, right? Good kid, yeah, Leo told me, yeah. He's always a good kid, yeah. I see him, Bob, drink. That's funny, he told me about that. Yeah.
Jim, those are the plans we like.
How you doing?
Very good. You?
I'm all right.
It's doing good.
Everybody's good. Everybody's good. Are you slowing down finally?
No, not sure. Maybe in a few years.
At least for the summer though, like are you done with your busyness?
Yeah, it's sort of leveled off a little bit, so.
Yeah. You make it down to the cable lunch? That's
We did, yeah. And we're actually putting on a like this, so that's actually a new building inspection small for the insulation, driveway inspection. Oh, then we can get a blue one. It's not a big, it's a bedroom and a half bath and a closet. It'll be good because my daughter, you know, instead of sleeping on the floor, you know, there's just
There you
my
go.
kid is sleeping on the floor.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, so is it done down there?
No, we're getting there though.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, no. All right, we're going to go back into session. As I said, the next item is a continued public hearing for, wait for Mr. Roden, 42 Mill Street, Planning Board Case 2018-12. In accordance with the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 11, the Quincy Planning Board will hold a continued public hearing on October 10th, 2018, on or about 8:29 in the lower conference room, Quincy City Hall, 1305 Hancock Street, on the application of Sherman's Mill Street LLC, 55 Willard Street, Quincy, for a site plan review under Quincy zoning ordinance title 17, section 9.5, sections. 1, site plan review. The applicant proposes the demolition of an existing two-family structure and construction of a new 3.5-story, 8-unit townhouse-style residential condominium development with 2-car garages, along with 8 visitor parking spaces for a total of 24. Can we close that door? Someone, please. I'm sorry. Thank you. Parking spaces. Applicant proposes landscaping, drainage, and other site modifications. The property contains 24,128 plus or minus square feet of land and is located at 42 Mill Street. The subject property is located within a Residence B zoning district and is shown in Assessors Plan 2030 as Lot 3. Sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, member of the board.
You can drop it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. My name is Hassan Schumann, and on behalf of my father, Chris, I want to thank you for your consideration on behalf of my application. When in the last meeting, my neighbors came and they showed up and they tried to bring their concern. Mostly, I listened. And what they were telling the board about their concern, I made sure that I listened, and I went back to my architect and to my engineers, and we were able to come up with a better design of their concern, which is the drainage, which we work on a new drainage system with Jim to explain, and we will be installing 9 concrete leach drain that will be going into a 12 inches drain connected directly to the leaching drain from the rear. And what I will have Jim and Brian explain into detail. And would appreciate very much if we could go forward today with this project. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Burke,
Good evening, Jim Burke at the Selberg Sala. Here tonight to go over 42 Mill Street, which you guys are sure familiar with. We've changed it quite a bit now. We've reduced the number of units, reduced the height of the units. We've also now relocated the stormwater retention system. It's now a 9 unit, 8 foot deep, 4 foot diameter leach pits kind of stacked on top of it, a 3x3 configuration. It's represented by that blue square in the rear of the parking lot there. We've captured essentially all the impervious area, the roof runoff and the pavement in that, and we eliminated the surface detention basin down below. As far as other changes, we had, peer review letter from Beals and Thomas, from Quincy DPW, Quincy Traffic, what else? Special Services as well. We took the opportunity to draft a letter of how we changed the plans to meet those concerns. Some of them minor, some of them a little bit major. The Beals and Thomas letter was written back on the original development. Some points were applicable, some weren't. But I think after all this review for 4 months or so, I think we've got something that actually works quite well with regards to parking density, stormwater control, and the like. And if you guys have any questions, anything specific, just real brief, we do have an overflow for the stormwater to the drain line that runs an easement towards the rear of the property, and we're actually tying into the existing sewer. We contacted, we did a video inspection of that sewer service. We talked to the Quincy Sewer Department, and they were okay with us reusing that, so it'll eliminate some of the work and disturbance within that easement as well. That's shown on the plan as well. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
any questions for Mr. Burke from the board?
The number of units, excuse me, you reduced the number of units? You said?
7.
Oh, 7, okay.
Yeah.
And what was it before?
Went from 8 to 7.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, what's up?
The architect for the project, my name is Brian Solity, and my company, Brian Solity, the offices are out of Weymouth. Nothing has changed architecturally from the last meeting that we had with the board, so if there are any questions, I will entertain.
Any questions for Mr. Saludi? Okay, as it is a continued public hearing, I have a letter, email, addressed to the board. I apologize, I cannot testify in person. I regret to inform all that I have a conflict in schedules, but I do want to express my opinion. I'd like to recommend the approval of a modified design and improvements to the 42 Mill Street project. I believe the applicant has acted in good faith by adjusting his parcel design as requested. He has worked with the neighbors in a reasonable manner that should be recognized by the board. I believe the drainage adjustments will be the biggest improvement on the site, as this will alleviate the concern of any additional flooding issues on Pond Street and the surrounding area. The applicant also proposes landscaping, as I mentioned, drainage improvements. and the other modifications to make sure the residents and the community are attended to. Please contact me for any new concerns, but I believe Mr. Schuman has directed his team in the correct manner. Best regards, David McCarthy, Ward 1 Council. Anyone who wishes to speak, come on up and identify yourself.
Hi, my name is Mike DeCesare. I live on 53 Pond Street. I bought 42 Mill Street on the bottom half where the actual retention pond was proposed. And based on what I've seen, David McCarthy sent me the revised plans. It looks like they are going to capture all the water up top. They get, I guess, manholes. They're going to be able to separate the water and everything. And they're going to be able to inspect it. And they're going to run it seems to be a concrete pipe underneath the ground. And it'll be connected on that easement storm drain on 4749, which I like. One question I have is I want to make sure there was an original sewer pipe, and maybe you can help me here. There was an original sewer pipe from the existing building. And I know in one of the prior meetings, you had said that they had recommended that you just tap into that existing pipe instead of having two sewerage pipes going into the existing sewer. Is that correct, or is that still the same?
That's correct. We're going to be using the existing
You're going to put so you're going to make a Y connection into that somehow.
We've actually already disconnected the sewer from the building. It's about 70 feet into the property from the easement.
Right.
And we're going to be connecting to that pipe directly. So there's going to be a sewer main.
Like that, like a Y. I just want to make sure that we're not disturbing anything.
Sewer main is going to start at a manhole up top here.
Yeah.
Connect up. Two services are going to come in from those buildings. The sewer main is going to come down to a drop manhole down here. These buildings, all these units will have separate services to that main. This drop manhole will drop underneath the retaining wall, come to a new manhole at the end of the existing sewer service and connect that way. So the sewer service, the existing one, from here to here.
I see. So you're going to have a manhole right there too, so you can inspect it there too.
A manhole here and a manhole up top, and then this is the one that actually is the drop. And you know, Quincy DPW had a specific detail they wanted to use with regards to how they wanted to do the drop, and we've complied with that.
Okay, I appreciate that. What I'm really all about here tonight is a couple of things. One, I want to thank the Schuman's Mill Street LLC, Hassan, the construction team, the engineers, the architect, for listening to our concerns and for working with us. They've cut it from 8 to 7, from 3.5 stories to 3 stories, from 3 bedrooms to 2 bedrooms. They have now 2 buildings at the front that look like houses on the street, which I think will look nice. And they have a duplex building that has there's 2 more buildings. One building on the left, I think, of the property has 2 units, and the other building has 3 units. So it kind of looks a lot better than the original plan where it was just 2 straight buildings. The other thing I wanted to point out, and I'm not a lawyer, so I mean I don't know how these things work, but and I noticed it on tonight's agenda, and you read it too, Mr. Chairman, when you read that the applicant proposes the demolition of existing 2-family blah blah blah, and he wants to put in 3.5 stories, 8-unit townhouse style residential. Is this going to change, or is this just something that's always reprinted? And then I also went ahead and looked up the City of Quincy zoning board, and it says the same, kind of the same thing. It says erect 8 townhouse residences. I just, I don't know if I want your word, but
No big switch.
well, yeah, no big switch, because if I wake up the next day and I got two buildings and I got 8, 3.5-story things, I mean, I just want to point it out, because I mean, do they have they edited their permit?
Yeah,
So, yeah, okay. And as far as I'm concerned,
we did the ad based on the original application.
Okay.
And the changes will be reflected in the recommendation from the department.
All right.
Yeah, what we do is create a decision, based on all the testimony and all of the revised plans. And then the applicant owes us 3 sets of fully revised plans at the end. And those become the planning board record. We submit a copy to the city clerk, and we submit a copy to the inspectional services department, because that's sort of the next step after this phase, is filing the building permit. So, yeah, it's a catch-up at the end. But I'll even read the revised language in here. I normally don't, but I will do that.
I'd appreciate it.
We're all on the telephone book, so.
Yeah, well, listen, I just the old, like you said, bait and switch, but what are you gonna do? Once it's up, I can't say tear it down.
Yeah.
So.
Again, if it wasn't built to the specifications in the approval.
Exactly. And I want to give my approval, and I want to thank Hassan for working with me and the neighbors, and, good luck.
Thank you. Is anyone else wishing to speak?
I got a quick comment, please.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
John Wall Road. One question I just want to ask. This part of the land right here, can you not build there for some reason?
No, you can.
So you could build there if you wanted to build? Like you could obviously build,
You could
can you not build there?
No, you can build there.
So you could take these and put them there if you had to?
Yeah.
Okay, or you could put them there if you had to? Okay. So let's just assume that that is all buildable land. I'll take Mr. Burke for his word, because he's very trustworthy. Okay. But the zoning code does say if there's over 6 dwelling units, you need 4,500 square feet per dwelling unit. So just according to zoning, they really do only have the right to build 5 units. I remember from the other building saying no one wants that building in the middle. They used to have 3 triple ones. They at least only have 1 now, which that is an improvement. So there's no doubt 7 is better than 8. But, the law says, which is the zoning ordinances, which are already very, very nice to developers as they are currently written, allows for 5 units on that property. So therefore, I don't like the setbacks on the left, I don't like the setbacks on the right. There's a lot of people who are being harmed by this project. I mean, that's why I stood up and I said that other project before wasn't actually that bad. Because, when I compare it to something like this, I just look at that upper space and I don't see much green space. I think of those people who come out of their yards, I don't think they're gonna be hanging in that backyard part. I think they're gonna be hanging in that little backyard that they got, right here. They're gonna be people hanging here, 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 and there's other people that live there. So the proper way, if you are going to allow these developments to happen, is, live within the zoning, okay? So by you approving this and sending it back to zoning, it's very confusing. Councilor Coughlin was out there kind of arguing with Councilor Fleming. Does it go to zoning first, or does it go to planning first? Does it go to zoning first? There really aren't any rules. It might go to zoning first, it might go to planning first. The key is for a project to pass, I was discussing this with you, Jim and me before the thing, it needs to get approved at both boards, okay? But one thing that is important, that if it gets approved at zoning, the scope of the project cannot change. So therefore, by you approving this at 7, you are tying zoning hands as saying, zoning, you either approve this at 7 or you don't approve it at all. So, I just think that they did say they made it smaller. They went from 8 to 7, but one of the tricks that I've seen that is played a lot is they start at a very unreasonable number to begin with. So if we had started at 6, I would still be here and saying, let's go to 5, okay? Even 5 is gonna be a hardship to the neighborhood. But it is allowable until the city councilors and the mayor change the zoning code, okay? But, you know, I just wish the planning board would plan according to the zoning. I mean, it's just a little confusing. So, I mean, it's also, I get confused too sometimes. Some properties, nobody cares about in the neighborhood, and then you get like that last property, everyone was up here on Main Street, you know, advocating for that. I try to advocate for the entire city when there aren't people here. I'm here meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting. And there's really nothing that can be done to fix what's going on, other than, you know, I don't want to say that, you know, if you keep making these decisions, we have to appoint another board, but board members get appointed for like 3 years at a time, 4 years at a time. Things cannot be changed quickly. So the goal is to change the zoning and to have the planning board respect what the zoning is. Because the zoning is there to protect the neighbors. And so it's like you're taking away the protection. What I actually feel is this, is that when you go sideways, normally the setback is 13 feet, okay, when you're on the sides. And on the back, it's, Mrs. Stevens, is it 20 in the back or 25 in the front? So the back is 25. I think when you do a project like this, and it actually does change. Once you do so many units, you can no longer go 13 feet. You have to go 25 feet from the sides. But I think even if you turn it sideways at any point, you should go 25 feet away. So when we look at where this is, where they're coming down the steps, it's under 10 on all of the units. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in that front one, which this setback might work, but that one doesn't work. So every single one of those units are non-conforming on that site. So you're creating a site with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 non-conforming units, which, you know, I think that, you know, it's just too many. So, I mean, if they had come back tonight with 5 units, I would have come up and I would have said, that's within the zoning, and I'm proud of them from going from 8 to 5. And I'll actually say, you know, I'm for that. But this one, I'm definitely not in favor of in its current form. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Our peer reviewer from Beals and Thomas, Matt Coates, I can say Coates, I'm sorry.
That's correct. So yes, for the record, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Matthew Cody from Beals and Thomas, we're the peer review engineer for this project. Back in July, we issued our first peer review letter, and since then the project has evolved. But back in July, during that initial review, we did note several concerns we had with the project at the time. Those did include the zoning, which I guess is outside the purview of this board, but we did note that those waivers were being requested and brought those to your attention. There was also some issues and concerns with the retaining walls as they were shown on site, and some other layout issues concerning like emergency access for fire trucks. Also, something that we noted were the use of the existing utilities. There wasn't a lot of documentation provided relative to the capacity and condition of those existing utilities. You know, going just from a single dwelling to now 8 units at the time. You know, to use those same utilities. Those comments were mirrored by the DPW. And those seem to be being addressed at this point. Other things that we noted at the time were the, on Mill Street, the reconfiguration of the curb cut and the sidewalks would need to be rebuilt, and there wasn't really any indication that those would be put back to an ADA standard for accessibility. We also did an extensive review of the stormwater system and noted some concerns at the time relative to the lack of soil information and existing groundwater level information being provided. So those were all the concerns. Quickly, both dating back to July. To bring it up to speed, to date, we received a revised package yesterday, which didn't really afford us the opportunity to fully vet the plans, but it was able to quickly review the revised submission It seems like a lot of our concerns are being addressed, and the project is moving forward in the right direction. We will need some more time to comprehensively vet the revised submission, but as I indicate, as you just indicated, that it seems like, for the most part, the concerns we had brought up back in July with the revised submission are being addressed. But we will get back to you in short order with a formal response to where we stand on that.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you, Matt.
I know you asked if there was any questions. Can I say something else? Again, my name's Mike DeCesare, 53 Pond Street, Quincy. The one thing that I don't want to happen is I don't want any more buildings put on this property. In other words, I don't want to be here in 2 years from now and they want to put 4 buildings down here. So if you can make some kind of special stipulation, I don't know if you can.
To answer your question, if they wanted to put additional 1 unit, 2 units, they're gonna have to come back to us.
Oh, okay.
3 units, right? And they'll probably have to go to the zoning board of appeals too.
Oh,
so there will be public notice. There'll be an opportunity for the public to comment.
All right.
That's so.
You know what I'm saying? I just don't want a city within.
I understand.
It's already a city.
No bait and switch.
That's all.
You can't limit an
I know I can't limit. I know I can't stop garbage.
If they want to, they can petition, but you get notice, just like you did.
They'll have to build it on stilts.
Especially when. Okay, I entertain, hearing no other comments, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Bob has a recommendation?
Yep.
Bring up the mic.
So I will restate, the project that will be included in the decision. The applicant, Shuma's Mill Street LLC, 55 Willard Street, Quincy, Mass., has applied for site plan review under Quincy Center zoning ordinance Title 17, Section 9.5.1, site plan review. The applicant proposes the demolition of an existing 2-family structure under a revised plan based on feedback from the public and planning board. The construction of 7 residential units in 2 one-unit buildings, 1 duplex that contains 2 units, 2-unit building, and 1 3-unit building in a residential condominium development. Each unit will have 2 ground-level garage parking spaces for a total of 14 garage spaces, along with 6 visitor parking spaces for a total of 20 parking spaces. The applicant also revised the drainage plan from a surface detention basin to an underground recharge system. So that's the change, and then what stays the same is the applicant is also proposing landscaping and other site modification. The property contains 24,128 square feet of land and is located at 42 Mill Street.
Thank you.
You will. With the recommendation, and to just echo Matt Cody's comments about the drainage area, we all also directly spoke with Chen Seng, city engineer, the city engineering office on the same. So there's an agreement with the approach, which is again not the deviation from the surface system to the underground system. After consideration of the site plan, accompanying documents, comments received from city staff and peer review consultant, the department recommends the board approve the site plan review under Quincy Center zoning, Title 17 under Section 9.5.1 site plan review, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, the applicant shall obtain all necessary variances from the City of Quincy Zoning Board of Appeal. Number 2, the applicant shall conduct a pre-demolition hazardous materials survey, i.e. asbestos-containing materials, fluorescent lights, PCB-containing materials, including ballasts, mercury-containing thermostats, and switches. We provide a copy of the survey to the Quincy Health Department. If hazardous materials are found in the building, then the applicant or its licensed abatement contractor shall consult with the Quincy Health Department regarding abatement measures and monitoring of abatement work. Number 3, the project site is in a residential neighborhood. The applicant shall consult with the Quincy Health Department on noise mitigation measures for the project-related noise-generating activities to comply with local and state regulations. Number 4, trash and recycling shall be picked up on-site by a private waste hauler hired by the project's homeowner association. Trash and recycling containers shall remain in the homeowner's units and not be placed outside until no earlier than 24 hours prior to scheduled collection. This special condition shall be incorporated into the homeowners association documents and into property deeds. Number 5, the applicant shall reconstruct the sidewalk along the entire frontage of 42 Mill Street with new ADA compliant bituminous concrete sidewalk with granite curbing as directed by the Department of Public Works. And number 6, the applicant shall provide a stop sign and stop line on the proposed site driveway. And that is the department's recommendation.
Okay, any questions on the department's recommendation?
Just a quick comment to make. Before making a motion, I just wanted to thank the applicant for working with the board. I feel like this project has been a paradigm of a collaborative effort. When you guys came and you had your first proposal, we listened, we as a board made comments, the public made their comments. It sounded like there were meetings behind the scene, and I've heard references, and just to be clear, it wasn't a matter, obviously, of reducing one unit. There was massing, there was configuration, there was aesthetics, there was a number of small and large tweaks to address the concerns in the neighborhood, and that's what we're here to do. And I just wanted to say that I thought that this was a very well-run back and forth, and so I'm happy to make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Jim? Thank you.
How's things?
Everything's good. It's funny, I was driving through Braintree with my daughter the other day. She's like, I wish I could grow here. I'm like, spaceship. Good luck. I was like, are you kidding me, really? I said, I purposely did not raise you here.
I'm still
If she moved one street over from me, she followed me.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I'm still over.
She's still in the same house? Good luck. So how's she doing, okay?
Good days, bad days.
My mother's 83.
She's only 78.
Oh, yeah, your parents were young.
Yeah, but yeah, I was over there today, you know. She took the trash out finally for herself.
Oh. That's a big house for her to have all.
I agree. Wish I could get her out.
Yeah.
That's not my head.
I haven't been up in that neighborhood in a long time. It's still beautiful, I'm sure.
It's all changed over.
Is it?
Obviously, remember Dana Taro? Yeah, Dana, his mom and dad still out.
Are they really?
That's
Oh, so funny. Oh, Tricia, yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Where are you in Quincy?
Penn's Hill, right on the Braintree line. Oh, nice. Right where near that development you just did.
The Hoover?
Yeah, so I'm on Biden.
Oh, okay.
Where Brad Crow lives.
That's a great spot.
Yeah.
That's
All right, good seeing you.
That was existing.
Johnny was like, oh, probably right here earlier.
Yeah, this is.
I had it in my office.
No, proposed, sorry. Yeah, use the engine. Proposed, so that's. Proposed maps. So 1, 2, 3 buildings.
Oh, I know that. I know your thoughts.
You can still talk to this guy. He's trying to get one more. No, that was the last way.
It's great. So he's not to be able to throw it. But if we spend enough time, it's funny because we're here.
Is there nothing else to do?
Keep my eye on you.
Used to see you on Sundays, they don't anymore. Okay. Okay, the next item is a public hearing for 11 Oak Grove Terrace, planning board case 2018-18. In accordance with the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 11, the planning board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, October 10th, 2018 at 9:01 in the first floor Boards and Commissions Room, Quincy City Hall, 1305 Hancock Street, on the application of 11 Oak Grove Terrace, LLC, 1393 Liberty Street, Braintree, 02184. Site plan review under Quincy zoning ordinance, section 17, Title 17, section 9.5.1, site plan review. And special permit under section 5.1.17, parking. The applicant proposes the demolition of an existing single-family structure and construction of a new 13-unit residential building with 26 parking spaces. The applicant also proposes landscaping and drainage and other site modifications. The property contains 13,535 more or less square feet of land and is located at 11 Oak Grove Terrace. Subject property is located within the Industrial A zoning district and is shown in Assessors Plan 3049, Lot 24, Lot 1.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, members of the board, planning board staff. My name is Jack Garland. I am here representing Sean Whalen and Tom Fitzgerald, who are the developers of this proposed project. I'd just like to introduce some of the folks that are here with us tonight. This is Alita Alba from Arthur Chu Associates, G-Man from Hardy and Man Group Design Group. And our special consultant, John Rutherford. I'll just give an overview of the project, and then they can speak to the specifics of the project itself. I think it's kind of fitting that we're the last item on the agenda tonight, because this project, if it's approved, will replace the very last house that's in Quincy. This is on Oak Grove Terrace. I'm sure the board knows Oak Grove runs right off of Independence Avenue. If you step 20 feet over, you're in Braintree. So it's a single-family home that's in somewhat of disrepair, surrounded by a lot of vegetation and trees and bushes and that such. The applicants propose building 13 units in this building. There'll be parking on the first floor. There'll be residential units on floors 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then there'll be a penthouse unit on the top floor. The units run about 1,400 square feet. Each of them is 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, and each has a balcony that overlooks the site. There's parking for 26 vehicles, which I believe exceeds any zoning requirements that would be imposed. However, this property is in an industrial A zoning district. We have appeared before the Zoning Board of Appeals on May 22nd with requested relief that was unanimously granted on setbacks and height and FAR. We come before the board seeking a special permit on parking waivers, thank you, and site plan review as well. I just want to say one thing, and I know that the previous applicant, I think, zeroed in on what we fortunately have already been able to do, which is to collaborate with the planning department staff. So this project originally was 15 units. It originally had parking in the front of the building, and it was higher as well. Sorry? More units. And more units. There were 15 units, as I said. So in meetings with the planning department staff over the last year or so, in ongoing meetings and negotiations and discussions with them, it's come down to this, which I think is a much more attractive project. One thing in particular, parking that had been proposed in the front of the building. So again, if you're coming down Oak Grove Terrace, that's going to be the front of the building. So if you're looking at, if you come down Oak Grove Terrace, you're going to be looking at the front of the building. So one of the long sides will run parallel with Independence Avenue. The other long side of the building will run parallel with Bennett Lane. There's an industrial concern in the back, Bennett Electric, which has been there for a number of years. So again, if you're looking at the front of the building, all the parking has been replaced. It's now a very large green area. I think it's roughly 900 square feet. With trees, I think there's a bench you put in there. A lot of grassy areas, shrubs, perennials as well. And on the right of the entry of the building, which was a parking spot, will now be a drop-off situation. So people can come in, take up their groceries or whatever, and then pull out into one of the assigned parking spaces. So with that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Sheeman, who will then discuss some of the engineering details of the development.
Good evening. Let me just take my over to.
I don't want you to go too far.
So, engineering-wise, again, this is the footprint of the building on the existing rectangular lot. Again, front of the building facing Oak Terrace, and the last revision we did was there was some on the previous version there was some parking in front of the building, and we all moved it to the side of the building, and on the side will be more like a terrace renting area, so it will be very attractive. The car will have perpendicular parking against the building, and we'll have a couple of egress from the garage and also emergency egress on the building with stair coming down. The front of the building is all landscape with the front entrance at the corner, again drop-off area, pickup area. Trash area is over at this corner here. It's a dumpster and recycling, separate bins. How it's operated is going to be, on the trash day, it's going to be a trash truck coming, private contractor coming. They will come in and roll this out on a, along the parking area. They will pick it up and then they will push it right back. So, and they will turn around. First floor parking, garage entrance right here, and then also there's 4 space on the back. So parking layout, efficient room to get in and out all the space, and all the space are 9x18 complied with the Quincy parking code, and 24-foot aisle, and on the back is even 28.5, which is more room for the car to turn around at the end. As far as the site drainage, the design is not to alter the existing drainage pattern. We're taking on the roof runoff, putting into an infiltration system on the back, and also the back parking lot with the deep sump catch basin and also a deep sump manhole for water quality to treat the parking lot runoff. And then it's an overflow pipe in case of really heavy rainstorm like the 2500-year storm. The system will be overflowing at a much slower rate than the pre-existing conditions. And again, we are not changing on the drainage pattern. The existing condition of the site, everything drained out to Oak Grove Avenue, and abandoning the natural topography of the site is the runoff follow the pavement all the way come down to the low spot right here. And also, we moved the parking from the front to the side, so we also have a trunk street to pick up all the runoff from the paved area. Again, treated with the deep sump catch basin, deep sump manhole, and then also another second infiltration system to collect the runoff and infiltrate into the ground. And this 3 galleons, we size it to hold the entire 100-year storm. So this system has no overflow system at all. And also the front driveway, we also pick up, it's a small area, but we also pick up with the trunk drain and treat it with the deep sump manhole, and then with a single infiltration galleys to pretty much hold the 100 years long as well. It's just infiltrating the ground. As far as the site goes, we are proposing a sidewalk coming in front of the site all the way down with the from Bennett's Lane to the property corner and extend to an existing regularly connected to existing the existing bitumen sidewalk that exists out here. The existing pavement is a irregular shaped pavement on Oak Grove Terrace. Along the frontage, we are installing granite curb and then tie into the existing edge of pavement. And we are working with the city to, and also the developer, the other developer across the street to determine the actual pavement width is going to be on the Oak Grove Terrace, and it will be minimum 24 feet, just like a typical side street in the city. That's pretty much covered the engineering.
Any questions from the board? I can see within the package, Oak Grove Terrace is an opinion. Is that a private way or is that, and I see the legal document, I'll leave that to the reading of the legal document.
Penalize that legal document.
I looked at it.
So the city of Quincy, council and mayor approved a taking of permanent public easement on Oak Grove Terrace in on Bennett Lane. And that was done back in 2016. So that's now public, essentially a public street with that 40-foot easement. That runs down.
I'm sorry, any questions from the board? Okay, all right. Yep.
Pretty much covered.
Okay, but that would conclude that.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
One thing I love about being on this board is discovering parts of Quincy that I did not know existed. I lived 2 blocks away and I had no idea what was behind those trees. And so now that I do know, I'm trying to picture the building. So, you know, Independence Avenue, obviously a very important thoroughfare in Quincy. So someday somebody goes, I want those trees out of here. It would be helpful for me to know if those trees are gone tomorrow, those mature trees right there, what does this project, what does this site look like from the street? And then, you know, just trying to match up what I have.
We do have a better rendering right here. And if that's taken with the landscape plan.
Independence Ave runs right on the side, so
Yep.
this is what we're going to be looking at from Independence Ave. Given the topography that slopes down towards Oak Grove,
Yep.
you're not going to be able to see the garage level, but you're going to be able to see from this level from well.
And then the material that is on the Independence Ave facing
Fiber
facade.
cement board, which is
Yes.
consistent with
Same
all the new,
architect.
yeah, the new buildings.
Okay, and then on the roof, you know, because that would be the most prominent feature. And that's something that I'm always very concerned about. What do we all have to look at for the rest of our lives? And just making sure that it fits. And so at the top there, is that
This is the
penthouse?
same, this is the penthouse, and that's also fiber cement, it's just a gray color in the background.
And is it for socializing up there, or?
No, it's a unit.
It's a unit, and so there's not gonna be railings and plantings and anything up there.
It steps back quite a
It steps
distance
back.
from.
It's about 60% of the square footage of the floor.
Okay.
Penthouse
it's
steps
way
back.
back.
So if this is the front of the building, you're asking about that front corner and you're looking at it from this direction.
Yes.
The distance, the penthouse sets back. Yeah, so this will be set back here 20 feet here.
So you're not going to be able to see much of that.
So the building is set back inside the roof, all except this front entryway that goes up to allow you access.
You're pretty much on the
because of the topography, the change in the sites.
And could you refresh my memory, what, I understand that's Braintree, where those, the fences,
Right.
which is, helps me understand why there's all this construction that I don't know what's happening there. But what is happening there?
Yeah, on the breaker side, yeah.
On the breaker side.
36 unit condominium building that's being built, it's in its final stages now. It's being built by Tom Fitzgerald.
Got it.
So that's,
And-
the project has been going on for a long time, but it's nearing.
You could probably help me understand, what's that corner gonna look like? You know, like if I'm trying to marry
Corner of the new building, Oak Grove Terrace?
Yeah, so the corner that is in that picture, is that gonna be landscape grass, is that gonna be,
This is gonna be the city of Quincy, this piece of land. The city of Quincy will own this.
okay.
So let me just add, as part of the taking of that permanent easement, Mr. Fitzgerald is deeding that piece to the city of Quincy.
Okay.
Once it's completely cleaned.
It's about
and
50 feet wide.
approved this.
Got it. And is that gonna be landscape then?
Oh, yeah, we already started in front of it.
Got
It's
it.
already landscaped.
And from Oak Grove Terrace, you almost can't see the new building. It's lower. It's 15-foot drop coming up, so right off the bat, it's almost invisible coming down Oak Grove Terrace.
Got it. Okay, very helpful. Thank you for helping me visualize it.
I just have one question.
Sure.
That large trees, okay, are they there now, right now?
Yes.
So I didn't expect you were gonna grow them overnight.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
But I'm sorry, I
Go ahead.
think those are on the abutting backyards of
Some,
the
yes.
properties fronting on it.
Some of them are, some of them are on the neighbor's property, right?
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, this is a public hearing. Ask anybody who wishes to speak, come forward and identify yourself.
Good evening, my name is Peter DeBonner, I live at 9 Valley Road, Quincy, Mass. Just a couple questions. Is it 13 units?
Yes.
3 per floor or 4?
Three.
So 2, 3, 4, and 5, three units, and then the pet house.
Correct, yes.
Okay. And then you talked about the visitor parking or whatever it may be on Bennett Lane. So from Oak Grove Terrace, you're going to see the big trees that are there now, and in the front of the building with some landscaping.
Correct.
And you go around, and the garage entrance is on the left side of the building.
No, the garage entrance is at the front of the building. You'll enter into the building right here.
Oh,
At the front
from
of
Oak
the
Grove
building.
Terrace?
Yeah, you'll enter into the building, the garage entrance right there, is right
Okay.
there. The parking that we talked about, we moved
On the
around
left side.
Bennett Lane, which is a dead
Yeah.
end. Now it's a public,
Okay.
now it's a public way, but, it leads nowhere. So this is the landscape plan, so this is the parking.
Oh, I
in
see.
and out of the
Okay.
garage.
So you go straight in the building?
You go straight into the building. This area right here is, it's got a bench, it's like an Uber drop-off area, or if somebody comes with their groceries, you know, they drop off.
Do you come in and out the same door for the garage?
Yes, somebody in and out the same door.
And 24 parking spaces underneath?
26 parking spaces.
26 underneath?
Including the exterior.
26 total?
Yes.
So 22 underneath?
It's 16 underneath and 10 outside.
Oh,
16
okay.
outside, yeah.
Oh, so the other, there's going to be parking behind the building too?
Yes, 4
Okay,
spaces.
I'm sorry, I just heard you say the 4 that were moved around.
Okay, so we got 4 right here, 1, 2, 3, 4. We got 6 right here. We got a floating spot, if you will, or a drop-off area, and then the driveway in and out and everything else is contained within the building. Yes.
Is that what it was, 16?
Yes, everything else is
Okay.
contained within the building.
Very good, thank you very much.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
That's the last time tonight.
My case is joined.
That was a joke. John Rutherford, 62 Brumwell Road. First got a question for Mr. Stevens there. Okay. On industrial A property, what is the minimum lot size per dwelling unit that you need to have?
There isn't one.
Okay.
This project received a zoning board of.
I know that. I just want to have an official from the city actually say that. that goes to show why we do need some zoning relief. So I cannot stand up here and say I'm against this project because it's too dense and it's against the zoning. In all reality, I'm in favor of this project because it's not against the zoning. Again, this is something where the developer is doing something. There's kind of like a flaw in our zoning code that people are taking advantage of. I like this project because it's almost in Braintree. Thank you, Mr. Fitzgerald. He could have built 36 in Quincy and only 11 in Braintree, but he decided to burn Braintree most of them. And I think most people will be taking a right when they leave and will be using Braintree roads. And many people will be living there, and they won't even have a car because that gate is going to be open and they can just walk to the train station. So, and they probably will not be able to afford a car because these are going to be very expensive units. So I'm in favor of this project, so I just wanted to get that on the record. I like to speak in favor of some projects, so I'm not against all projects. I like development. I like new growth. We need new taxes, and you're really not even going to notice this when you're driving by the street. So I was at the public meeting that they had, it was a while ago, and many of the people there were in favor of this, so I just want to let you know I'm in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Winfield. Anybody else wishing to speak? Anybody who has not spoken, wishes to be recorded? There are sign blocks over on the what do they call that, a table or a ledge or whatever. We do not have input back, right?
No, this is just opening, review is underway, so.
Okay, so understanding that, I'd ask for a motion from the board to continue it to the 14th of November. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Okay, there's no business items? No motion to adjourn?
Oh.
Thank you, gang.